Thanks, Hugh. My name is Matthew Kandrock. I'm the National Coalitions Director for 60 Plus Association. I'm privileged and honored to introduce the MC for this event. I've been riding shotgun with him for quite a while on the bus tours. My roommate, so to speak, and won't share any stories with you or anything, but great guy. He's our chairman. He's chairman of 60 Plus Association, a former Marine and the founder of 60 Plus, which is known as a conservative alternative to AARP. Also, some say he is the twin to Ted Turner. So with that said, here he is, Jim Martin.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We've got a great program tonight. It's great to be here in Scranton on the spendingrevolt.com bus tour. You know, what we're trying to do here, of course, is send a message to Washington that they've got to stop their spending. You got to live within your means like families have to do. And the reason we're going around to locations is all things are local, as one politician once said, and it's at local parties and tea parties and others around the country. It starts at the grassroots. We believe in grassroots up movement. So clearly it's here. We want you folks to know that we're happy to be here. We've got a great lineup of speakers here. And before I go any further, I want to mention my group, the 60 Plus Association, in case people think sometimes we get mixed up with the AARP. I must hold up our bumper sticker for the world to see. The AARP, the Association Against Retired Persons, and I'll talk a little bit more about them later. Let me dispel the Ted Turner thing real quickly. My wife and I had a son to go to school down in Atlanta a few years ago, so when I go down there, the upside was we get the best seat in the house. Of course, the downside was everybody expected me to pick up the tab. So we don't go to Atlanta much anymore. Look, let me point out, too, before I get into something called Obamacare, that's my passion and the overspending that's done there, and I want to talk to some of you seniors about that in a minute. We've got a great lineup, a great panel here, but first of all, let me mention the four sponsors of the Spending Bus Tour, which, as Hugh said, has gone all over the country. Throughout Florida, where I grew up, I was a newspaper man down there. Throughout South Carolina, they about wore me out. Matt, we've been on the bus tour together. They almost wore me out, so at my age I had to go home and rest up, but I'm glad to be back out here. The sponsors are the Americans for Prosperity, Concerned Women of America, Citizens Against Government Waste, CAGW, and my group, the 60 Plus Association. Why did we do this? We wanted to focus attention on the overspending that's been going on ad infinitum all over the country and clearly at the federal level. So having said that, and before I go to our first panelist, I got to tell you, the AARP and the 60 Plus, a couple of major differences, really. They're a Fortune 500 conglomerate reaping millions and millions of dollars on the backs of seniors, in my estimation. And they receive a lot of tax dollars, which a lot of people don't realize. We don't. As a matter of policy, we're for limited government. Really, and an adherence to a document called the Constitution of the United States of America, which we think needs to be read more by the folks down in Washington, D.C. One other difference is they tout a guy named Harry Belafonte as their Man of the Year, and that's fine. He's a great entertainer. We like to tout our national spokesman. You may have heard of him, legendary singer Pat Boone. And, yeah, I'm sure. Pat is still out on the singing circuit, but the fact is Mr. Belafonte likes to hobnob with Ahmadinejad and that likes, and Pat Boone likes to tout his friendship with none other than Ronald Reagan. Let me touch on Obamacare 1 second. Thank you. You know, seniors, about a year ago in August, I saw seniors all over this country rising up in arms against this 2,000 monstrosity that was being thrust upon them. It was senior citizens all over the land, men and women alike, that were protesting this 2,000-page monstrosity. It got passed anyway. And during those town hall meetings, last August 2009, seniors were called un-American. And I remember hearing that, and I thought that was one of the more despicable things I'd heard in my 50 years in Washington. I went there as a newspaper reporter in 1962 when John F. Kennedy was in the White House. I covered that tragic moment in our nation's history. I've seen a lot of Congresses come and go as a reporter. But to be called un-American, that was truly out of line. So I decided at that time, as a senior citizen, I was going to go around the country and try to keep seniors fired up. I found out to my surprise, you don't have to keep seniors fired up. They're fired up. They're marching. They're angry. They're upset about the $500 billion cuts to Medicare. Don't let anybody kid you differently. It's been documented. It's cuts to Medicare. There's rationing on the horizon. Don't let anybody kid you. I noticed that there are 3 hospitals in this area. I was talking a minute ago that in this area they're closing down due to Obamacare. Another thing, this is National Cancer Awareness Month. There's a cancer drug, breast cancer drug, called Avastin. It's on the verge of being declassified by the Food and Drug Administration. It's been approved by FDA. It's being declassified for one reason and one reason only: cost. Never in the history of our country has that occurred. So we brought that to the attention of the public down in Washington about 2 weeks ago. They were going to come up with their ruling in mid-September, and suddenly they put it they put it down the road 90 days. I believe that's conveniently after the November 2 elections. So clearly, that if that isn't the camel's nose under the tent toward rationing and long lines, I don't know what in the world is. Again, going back to the business of being called un-American, again, that was despicable to me. And to be called that, I guarantee you there were men and women in those audiences, and I guarantee you there are men and women in this audience right here that have served in one branch or another of our armed forces. You fought on distant lands to give her the right to say that. I'm not going to name her, but her initials are Nancy Pelosi. Thank you. There's a tsunami, I like to say, headed toward Capitol Hill. In this case, it's a senior citizen tsunami. Unless it subsides, there's going to be a lot of politicians looking for a new line of work come November the 2nd. Someone said, Jim, can you get specific? I said, well, I've been out in Searchlight, Nevada. I think you know who I'm talking about there, Senator Harry Reid. Let me tell you something right now. Senator Reid is a dead man walking. He will not come back to the Congress next year. He's a goner. And the wackiest guy in the House of Representatives down in my home state of Florida, my God, Alan Grayson, he's gone too. He will not be back. Without further ado, I'm going to turn to a lineup of folks. Look, the spending has gotten totally out of control, and a guy I just met recently on this bus tour, Matt Bruyere, is head of the Commonwealth Foundation right here in Pennsylvania, and he has some great stories to tell you, and he has some warnings to tell you, too. It's not just federal spending. It's in Harrisburg, and, of course, it's all over the country. Matt, how about coming on up?
Thank you, Jim.